When I was a kid, I spent most of my time exploring outside. That's where I discovered the power of nature, plants, and science. My whole world changed, and there was no looking back. Some people have diaries. I kept notebooks of all my adventures. Whatever I need to find, a faraway place, an old friend, or a window to the world beneath our feet. It's all in there. Just turn the page and whoa! My name is Maria, and these are my nature notebooks. You know what's so cool about being at the Chicago Botanic Garden? No matter where you go, there is always something going on. Whenever I'm looking for an adventure, I just walk around and find it. Have you ever looked at a model train and wondered what it would be like to be super small and look outside the window as you move across the track? Sometimes I look at an insect, like our bee friends, and imagine what they see. To them, a flower must look as big as a house. It's fun to think about the size of the trees all around us. Have you ever wondered, how did this tree grow to be so tall? Or why is this tree so small? Is the place where the tree is growing causing it to grow in a certain shape or direction? That gives me an idea for today's show. Come on, let's go. Bonsai is the combination of two Japanese words, one meaning pot and one meaning plant or tree. Bonsai is a tree or a shrub that's grown in a pot. So instead of growing to be a really big tree, it's grown to be a mini tree, or at least look like one. Let's go take a look at some bonsai trees. Pine is 600 to 1,000 years old. Wow! You know, it's amazing to think that there are trees all around us that are hundreds of years old. Hi Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Maria?
Good. My friends and I were just stopping by and wondering what you're up to.
Well, I am pruning a Chinese elm tree that's part of the Chicago Botanic Garden bonsai collection.
It's a tree. I've never seen a tree this small. It's so tiny.
It's a bonsai. So what we're doing is we're taking trees that would normally grow in nature and we are miniaturizing them to look like large trees in nature but in a small container.
Now it looks so different. There's so many different layers.
Yeah.
There's moss here and it's wet. It's very wet.
Yeah. We had a lot of rain last night, so it's still wet, and the bark is kind of spongy, right? So the bark absorbs water. Once it absorbs water, then moss will grow on it, and that gives it a little bit of an aged appearance. And you can see the bark on the lower part is much thicker and much more bumpy than the bark at the top.
Oh, I see. It's smoother.
It's a little smoother, right? So this is the youngest part of the tree. Trees grow from what we call the terminal points or the tips. So trees grow from the tops and the edges of the branches. The base doesn't rise up out of the ground, right? It always grows from here. So this is the oldest part of the tree, and this is the very youngest part of the tree. So this tree is probably about 50 or 60 years old. And
50 or 60 years old? It's so small.
Yeah, and it would have been grown more than likely from a cutting like this, or grown from a seed. And so we can take branches like this, and we can remove the lower branches. And then you put this in some rooting hormone and put it in a container, and you can grow a new tree. And this is probably how these trees started, was from a cutting of another tree, just like it.
Wow, so this tree used to be that tiny.
Probably, yes. I would say that it was probably grown from a cutting.
That's so cool.
Now we can get trees from seeds, of course.
I thought that was the only way you could
No.
get a plant to grow is from seeds.
Yeah, no, from cuttings, different propagation. So from seeds, from cuttings. In bonsai, we get trees that are collected from the ground. So sometimes it'll be a tree that was growing in the ground in nature, and then, or in your backyard, and then it can get dug up and it can be made into a bonsai. It doesn't have to be a special species. It doesn't have to be, it's not a dwarf species. They're regular trees that will grow in your area. Bushes, shrubs, trees, things like that can be used for bonsai.
Wow, so bonsai is not a specific type of tree.
Correct. Bonsai
Wow.
really means tree in a pot. It's a Japanese word that means tree in a container or a pot. The bone is the pot and the sai is the tree.
These leaves are so tiny.
Yeah.
They're very, very rough on the edges.
Yeah, the elm trees have a little serrated edge. And there's lots of different leaf kinds, of course, different leaf colors and shape and size. We like small leaves because it makes it seem like the tree is in scale and proportion. So when we look at a bonsai, we want to kind of envision a tree that's off in the distance maybe. So the leaves seem small and the tree seems overall small, but it's in the same scale that a tree in nature would be.
Now, are there other types that you have here besides this one?
We have about 300 trees in the collection, and we have lots of different species. Would you like to look at another one?
Of course.
What do you think of this tree?
This is awesome. Can we touch it?
Sure.
This is definitely dry. It's not like the other one. This
Right.
is very dry. It almost looks like when we see dead trees.
All right. Very
Why
good.
does it look like that?
So this is dead wood. So when we're creating a bonsai, we're telling a story about a tree. And this tree has a story, and it's several small trees that are grouped together. And this tree is an individual tree that obviously comes from a very different place. Maybe the wind is blowing it, and so the direction of the tree's growth is influenced. So if the wind is pushing the tree this way, it might have killed this part of the tree, and then this part of the tree is growing and it's being influenced by the wind. And so this part is dead, and then this part here is alive, and we call that a live vein, just like our veins,
Oh, wow.
because
I see
it
here.
moves the energy and the sap of the tree. And this part is a
Ah.
dead part. So trees can live with dead parts on their trunks or their branches. This is called a shari when it's on the trunk, and when it's an individual branch, it's called a jin, J-I-N,
jin.
not G-I-N.
Jen.
Jin. Jin and shari. And that gives age and character to the tree because it tells a story about the tree's life.
I didn't know you could tell so much about a tree just from looking at the bark or the direction that it's growing in.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Trees tell us a lot.
This root structure is really, really
It's
cool.
really wild, right? Yeah.
It's great that we can see this. Is this usually happening with all trees? It's just underground? Can we just see it more that this is a container?
Or
Yeah.
does that have to do with the way that you prune it? and
It
take
has to
care
do
of
a
it?
little bit about the more of the way the tree is grown and the species of tree. So this is a tropical tree. This is a ficus tree. And this is a common house plant that people have, and it can be used to make a bonsai. And these roots here, which in some of them are almost unsightly in a bonsai world. However, the roots are grown like this because of the way we're growing it.
Got it.
And so this is a tropical tree, probably from a cutting, but all of these roots are part of because it's in a small container. So ficus trees, different species or different kinds of trees will grow roots in a different way. Not all trees grow roots this well, but the ficus trees do. They grow very fast. Tropical trees grow very fast.
Now
So-
these leaves are definitely different from the other bonsai trees that we saw.
Yeah.
So these are bigger,
bigger. Yep.
they're longer, and they feel fake. They feel very, very smooth.
They're waxy.
Very
So
waxy.
why would a tree have a waxy leaf?
So why do you think, friends? Maybe for some type of protection?
Protects it from the sun. So this is a tropical tree. It comes from a hot place like Florida or even further south. And most ficus species are originally from Asia, but in hot parts, tropical parts of Asia. And so the waxy leaf protects it from the sun and it prevents it from drying out when it's too hot. These
Huh.
leaves are used to more shade, and although they are tiny, so they protect themselves from the sun by being tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not as much surface area. These guys are waxy. Yeah, they're nice and smooth and waxy. And they're big. So this tree is developing. So we don't always have them with the small leaves. Sometimes they're developing out and growing, and we want them to be growing, and then we can prune them back into size. So this looks a little bit more like a bush
Mm-hmm.
than a bonsai.
It does.
But if I make a few cuts on it, then we can take it back into shape. Would you like to see how I do that?
Of course.
Okay, so by shortening the branches, we can start to bring the tree into a little bit more scale. Would you like to cut one?
Yes, of course. This is almost like giving the bonsai a haircut.
Well, it sounds like a haircut, and there's lots of stuff on the ground like the barber shop, but leaves are different than hair. So leaves are photosynthesizing and giving the tree energy, where our hair, I don't have any hair, but your hair is just covering up. It's for protection, right? Protects us from the sun. It
Mhm.
keeps our head warm and it keeps our head cool. But leaves are serving a greater function to the tree by feeding the tree, because trees use light and water and oxygen to do what we call photosynthesis, and that makes energy for the tree. So it would be as if your hair made food for your body.
Oh. Well,
And so as we prune this and as we reduce the amount of leaves and foliage that we have and branches, we start to see that this tree that once looked a little bit like a bush is starting to look a little bit more like a tree. So a big part of that is a term that we call negative space. And that is just openings or space between the branches that allow light to come through and allow us to create a shape within the tree.
this is cool.
And so now you can see that this is a tree in development. So it's being turned. It's not, of course, as refined or as developed as that tree is. And now you can see that it looks a little bit more like a tree
Yes, then
Than a
it's not
bush.
as bushy as it
because
was.
we gave a little bit more of scale and proportion, and negative space, meaning that there are spaces in between. Old trees in nature, their branches come down and they sag and they start to get space between, or a branch dies and we get spaces in between. We see young trees, they're very full and they're packed tight.
Mhm.
Old trees have like what we call negative space or gaps of light that go through. And that's one of the ways that we can create the illusion that this is an old tree in nature versus a small tree in a pot. And then you can see these are roots. These are air roots. And these roots will come down to the ground, and these help the tree supplement with its moisture and energy.
Really? So roots can grow from the top of the tree? I thought
Yeah.
roots only grew at the bottom.
Well, for most species, yes, but tropical trees will send out what we call banyan style or banyan roots. And so these roots will come down, and what happens is in nature, it rains and there's moisture, and the moisture collects on the roots and the gravity pulls it down to the tip. And so then there's a little bit of water here, and a root will start to grow, and eventually it goes down and it gets to here. When this root gets to here, it can then take up energy to that branch. So if you think of tropical trees, you'll see a lot of those downward roots that come down, and they help feed the tree. Now in a bonsai container, the tree wants more nutrition than we're giving it, and so it's making these roots in an attempt to get more water and food.
Is this something that we would be able to learn to do?
Sure, anybody can learn to do bonsai. Just like anything else in life, bonsai takes some studying, takes time, and most of all, it takes practice. So working on trees is a great way to learn. You can get a tree like this at a nursery or online or at a bonsai show like we have here at the garden. And you can take workshops and classes and read books and practice. Just like anything else, the more you do it, the better and the easier it becomes. And it can be done by anybody. And it can be done with a lot of different trees. So no matter where you live, if you live in an apartment, if you live in a big home, if you live in the city, if you live in the country, you can find a type of plant that will grow in your house or outside of your house that you can create a bonsai with. It doesn't take much. You need a nice pair of scissors. And here's a couple other tools. A pair of tweezers. And these are good for picking weeds and picking little pieces of bark. Some larger cutters. And these are for cutting big, thick branches like that one. And then we have wire.
What is that for?
So wire is what allows us to move the branches. So when we put a piece of wire on, we find a branch, so we can put the wire on the branch, and we wrap the wire around. We use our index finger to guide the wire. And we manipulate it around the branch. Okay. Would you like to cut the wire?
Sure.
Just cut it right at the base.
Right there?
Yeah. Yeah. Take that. Let me do that. And now the wire allows us to move the branch.
So you bend that down and the wire helps to hold it in place. And it's
Right.
just enough so that you don't break the branch.
Right. So the wire, when it gets wrapped around the branch, it allows us to move the branch, but it also protects the branch. And so we wrap the wire around the branch in a 45-degree angle, and the wire protects the branch when we bend it. And so if we didn't put the wire on properly, we bent the branch, we could do damage to the branch and break it. And so the wire, as much as it is for moving the branches, it helps keep the branch safe because we don't want to hurt the branch.
Of course.
We have lots of different sizes for all the different size branches.
So the bigger the wire, the bigger wire is for the bigger branches.
Yes.
There's so many parts to just creating this bonsai. Not only creating, but just maintaining it. It's a lot of work.
For me, the enjoyment of bonsai is the process. I like this tree, it's a beautiful tree, but it's creating the tree that is why I do it. It's nice to look at them. but it's the doing, it's the involvement, it's the relationship with the person in the tree, it's the relationship with people who do bonsai. It's a very fun community of people, and it teaches you a lot about plants, teaches you a lot about yourself, and it's the success of bonsai, of creating good bonsai, is in the process. It's about just what you were saying, learning, practicing, doing it, and one day you'll just look at it and it will be a really nice tree and you won't even realize.
It's amazing when you talk about the relationship with the bonsai and the process and what you're doing. And it's so important to remember that we have relationships with the environment around us. With every living thing around us, we have a relationship with it. And this, it seems like it's such a calming process to create something and to maintain it and to watch it thrive and watch it grow. You have no choice but to develop a relationship with it and also help you to relax. You can almost feel the calm coming off of the tree. So it's really, really awesome. I definitely feel better and calmer just watching you with this process.
It's a connection with a living thing that's other than a person.
That is beautiful. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing with me and my friends all about bonsai and the process.
You're welcome. Hopefully you get a bonsai of your own.
Yes, I'm already thinking about it. What about you, friends? Now that we know that we can put in a little work and have something just as beautiful, maybe you can start thinking about what type of tree you would do the bonsai process.
Now that was pretty cool. I had no idea that bonsai is not something that you need a lot of money to do. Bonsai is something that anyone can try. And with enough practice, you can do bonsai, I can do bonsai, we all can do bonsai. I had so much fun today, and I cannot wait for our next adventure. I'll see you next time.